people? So we're back with another video. I hope you all been staying safe and staying free and having a good start to the week. Now this one that I'm bringing to you all today is all about HMP Long Lartin Category A prison. So let's get into it. So for those who are new to joining my channel and don't know, joining my journey, my big brother's currently serving 35 years for murder, and I did mention in the Belmarsh video that he spent 3 years there until he asked to then get moved to Long Lartin prison. Now he's been at Long Lartin prison for the past 4 years. He's quite happy there, and he's only had one incident, which we're going to get into, as it's about, you know, the screws and the prison. So earlier on this year, my big brother caught a case as he beat up a prison screw, which is a prison guard. Now there was altercations, you know, back and forth as I was in prison in a Cat A myself at the time, and I used to speak and write to him quite a lot. And, you know, he was telling me what was going on, and it got to a point where he beat one of them up. Now, the result of beating one of them up, they gave him an extra year on top of his 35 years. So now he has to serve a full sentence of 36 years. There's no, you know, doing 17.5 years, then getting you know, early release and parole. He has to do the full 36 years before he sees his freedom. Now, with beating up the screw, I didn't hear from him, you know, writing through letters or over the phone call, as we used to speak to each other through prison phone calls. And, you know, the reason for that is because he was in segregation. Now, I have watched the documentary on Channel 5. It's called Evil Within Inside, and it's a few episodes on prison and Long Lartin. Now, on the documentary, it only shows you a picture of the segregation. It doesn't go down, it doesn't speak to anyone that's in segregation, and it doesn't speak to any of the prisoners, inside of prison. Now the reason for that is because if they was to have took those cameras and allowed them down into that segregation bit, they would have found the true, you know, truth, just like to Belmarsh, if they showed Ross the actual true extent to what the prison's like. Now, with the segregation, my brother was down there to about nearly 4 weeks. I didn't hear from him because, you know, he was in seg, and he was telling me when you're going towards segregation, you have a set of stairs, and then when you go down them set of stairs, you are obviously in handcuffs, and there's a gate. The gate's locked. They unlock the gate, and then you have all of the cells where segregation is. They didn't show that on the documentary. Now, with HMP Long Lartin, the living conditions are just as bad as Belmarsh. They're not any better than Belmarsh. You know, some people just prefer different prisons, maybe being closer to home or whatever the case is. Now, with the prison itself, we're living in a 21st century generation to where, you know, it's modern times. Now, those prisons that have been built, like Belmarsh and Long Lartin, they're built in the 50s and the 70s, and, you know, the technology hasn't been updated from the early 2000s, and some of them even the 90s. The only thing they're updating is probably, you know, making sure they got toilets probably, and the CCTV. Now, with the amount of money that these private, you know, services that hold these prisoners, that they get paid per prisoner, it is absolutely a madness. It's near to 50 grand a year that they're getting paid per prisoner. So it's not that they can't afford to create new facilities for prisoners. Yes, prison's not supposed to be a holiday camp, but at the same time, people have the right to live, you know, in the right conditions. When they don't have running water, as I have experienced in my second prison myself when I was in the middle of the mountains, you know, that's standard things that a prisoner should be able to have, which is water and food. Now, my brother used to tell me there were certain times in Long Lartin when they can be bothered to let you out, as they are understaffed there, they can be bothered to let you out. So certain days you were getting let out for your not even full hour, it was 45 minutes, 40 minutes cut short, and then, you know, certain days you wasn't. Now, with big man prison, as I have said to these young ones and people in the white or eyes, do not expect these prison officers, the screws, the guards, to save you. As I watched in that documentary, the screw saying to us, you know, to the camera, she's saying herself, by the time when they get to people that they get to, because they're too busy laughing with their colleagues and, on their phone, by the time they get to you and you've been chefed or you've gone through a madness, you are nearly about to meet your creator by the time you get help, because these guards are understaffed. They're too busy, maybe dealing with something else, which more time they're too busy on their phones. And with the documentaries, I would say that, this one that they done, The Evil Within, was better than Ross Kemp, but the first 30 minutes was the best 30 minutes, as they were showing you the true, you know, extent to the whole prison, which they should have kept throughout the whole 200 minutes. Now, with the prison itself, the Craig, the brother that was, the gangster, the Craig brothers, one of the Craig twins was actually in that prison as well, and it's holding famous, you know, crazy psychopathic people in that prison. Now, me personally, everyone has their preference to what prison they want to be in, and being in a category A prison myself and living in certain conditions when I got moved to a worse prison, it really does make you thankful to what certain prisons that you go to, as not everyone has the choice of going to that prison. If you commit a crime, then you're going to Belmarsh. If you're living